It's Nolan.
Now, before we get started, make sure y'all hitting that like button. Make sure y'all sharing it on your respective platforms. Let somebody know what we're doing today. Now, let's get into the show.
Hit you with the no delay in my progress. All the time struggling, only further my conquest. Looking to the future, I wrote and printed the concept. Posted to the net, but that's just a piece of the mindset. Brand slow balling, I'm snowballing, get back to work. Got your favorite companies watching me, but they never chirp. Big names, all of my stories, I see them studying. I probably could have helped them, I guess they stuck in they stubbornness. This shit is jokes. Independent living, did it with the quotes. Been a hidden hand, sending lyrics, and it's been remote. From the home set up, these jokers, it's known beggars. You nothing without a squad. I'm fixing my phone settings, a lyricist, supremacist. The penmanship is limitless. I'm building businesses, aiming again since I've been in this. I'm 007, been cold since '07. How I do it? I was home alone, Kevin. Goal setting, but now my goal setting, commentating, they fixating. Light from the hand, the pins rating, forget waiting. I hit record, then I hit record. If a nigga play me on the mic, then I choke him with the cord. Yeah, I'm sacrificing money here with every verse, giving punchlines to these rappers when I said it first. Preaching to the choir, giving facts like we in the church. I'm just praying for the dead, start to reimburse. True prerogative, they blew the entire budget. They do it, Micah discussions. I'm zooming in higher uppers like Mr. Nolan. We should get this rolling. Tell me what you need, a check, pause, city colon. I'm tired of the games, fanning the flames. I'm making a change. You don't value what I'm bringing, then it's not an exchange. Only resolution I'm worried about is 4K. If you really want to party with me, then set up the play, bitch.
What's going on, beautiful people? It's the kid J Nolan here. Welcome back to another episode of Inside the Industry, your number one source for music, entertainment, commentary, and breakdowns. Hope everybody's doing well out there. YouTube is bugging. They're running like infinite checks on my content right now. So if this video happens to come out a little late, as in Thursday morning, I want y'all to know that this is from Wednesday, Cassie's testimony on the stand. But again, YouTube is wilding out. So to not cause any losses on my end, I got to push this stuff back. All right. Now, without further ado, Cassie is still on the stand, testifying about her involvement in, Diddy's sickening lifestyle, talking about the nasty sexual proclivities, the drugs, all of this different stuff, and the trafficking that she allegedly took part in. You know what I'm saying? Now, I know some people are looking at it as if maybe she was a willing participant, but remember, she was drugged up. And we universally know that you cannot consent to sex while under the influence. All right. Not to mention these escorts are being flown in and flown to different places. Some have been in New York, LA, Vegas, where prostitution is legal, but in other cities where it's not. So that is the interstate trafficking stuff that's going on here. Some people are wondering why there's a RICO involved. Is because Diddy's business partners and people that work at his enterprise were clued in on what was happening. They were facilitating it, and they were allowing it to happen without intervening. That is the RICO element. Now, all of these things are subject to being found not guilty. I'm not saying that it will, but there's always a chance. That's why it is a trial, right? I don't know what the jury's thinking. I cannot try to suspect what the jury's thinking. All I can do is share my opinion and my real-time thoughts based on what we're being presented with. Don't want to waste a lot of time because I don't have a lot of time. So let's get into Cassie's testimony from Wednesday, all right? I've seen some people in the comments saying the inner city press misses some things in here. Well, tell me where y'all sources are giving y'all, the information, and I will follow them. But as of now, inner city press has been consistent. And although some things do get missed, this is the closest that I've gotten to everything other than waiting on transcripts, which I'm not going to do. Okay. So U.S. versus Sean Combs, Cassie still on direct, then cross May 14th. Inner city press is covering the trial with extras. We have the judge here. All rise. Judge Subramanian says we have a note from a juror about a scheduling accommodation. It's not in the docket. What about Miss Ventura's husband? Okay. U.S. attorney says he will be removed from the courtroom before a certain issue comes up. Good. All right. So at some point, Cassie's husband will be taken out. Have the privacy screens been installed? They are being installed by court tech staff. On the conferring with counsel issue, I tend to agree with Ms. Shapiro. That's the judge. What about conferring about questions about privilege? Okay. Alexandra Shapiro, defense for Diddy, says, I'm concerned that during the break there could be generalized discussion about the testimony might come up. We are going to try to avoid any privileged communications. All right. During Mr. Phillips' testimony, I spoke with his lawyer. We anticipate these witnesses being on cross-examination for multiple days. We need to speak with them about security and transportation. Judge says, Ms. Shapiro, can you draft something on a piece of paper, an instruction you would have me give? U.S. Attorney, the defense has sent us a zip file of text messages. We are reviewing them before raising it. Judge says, I appreciate that. All right. U.S. Attorney Kami says, the defense has still not shown us exhibits they may use in cross-examination of Ms. Ventura. We are worried this will continue. All right, so some exhibits have been withheld for some reason. Another one of Combs' defense, Anna Maria Estavio, says we are marking several chains of text messages. They had these documents in their possessions for 8 months before we got them. Judge says we are here. We were told there's half a day left of direct. Could you give them at lunch? Okay, defense, our paralegal is printing them out. U.S. Attorney Kami, they should have turned over these exhibits to us on April 27th. Judge says, Ms. Garagos, we did have a schedule. As you mark them, why shouldn't you be required to turn them over? Combs Agnifilo, who answers, Rule 16 does not contemplate these carve-outs. We are not behind the 8 ball on this. We have complied with Rule 16. I would be surprised if the government only has another 3 hours with Ms. Ventura, but whatever. Agnifilo says, we don't think it's required, but we'll do it. Luckily, we have a sizable defense team, so we can do it. Ms. Kami, what do you want? She says, we want their exhibits, not a trial by ambush. I want them now. I will find the cases. Okay, judge says, you don't have to put in a letter. You can just email me the cases and I'll take a look at them. Inner City Press would ask, are these judicial documents going to go into the public docket? How much is being left off docket in this case? That's a sidebar he puts in there that's not being stated. Judge says, we have a witness waiting in the back. Produce them before the cross-examination starts. You can email me cases during the trial day. Let's get moving. Let's get Miss Ventura back. So we're getting back to Cassie, okay? Welcome back. Judge, all rise. You are still under oath. Proceed, okay? U.S. Attorney Johnson says, may I approach the witness? Judge says you may. All right, Ms. Ventura, I just handed you 2 drives. What is on them? GX8. Cassie says, messages and photos from my devices. Yesterday, you testified about Sean going armed to look for Suge Knight. She says Sean took guns with him, and he told you to ask the escorts if they were cops. She said, I will begin by saying I was not a cop. Sean told you to do that? She says yes. Okay. U.S. Attorney asks, what happened when you fought back? She says, I did that more earlier in the relationship. It would make him more violent, want to push me harder. Okay. Defense says, objection to the speculation. Judge overrules it. Okay. So they ask her what happens when she fights back. She said she did that more so in the earlier part of their relationship because it made him more violent. So at some point she began to just comply. Okay. How would Sean react if you fought back? Anger. U.S. Attorney says, I'm going to show you the LA Intercontinental Hallway again. Play from 143 to 146. And the actual video was released today on the internet. I guess the unedited version. Of course, we won't be playing it over here, though. U.S. Attorney says, who enters? Cassie says, Sean, what's in his hand? She says, he doesn't appear to have anything. U.S. Attorney, play to 159. Now, anything in his hand? She says, my phone. How did he get it? She says, well, he took all of my stuff. Where does he end up? She says, sitting in a chair in front of the window. They ask, what is she doing? She says, I'm walking away from him. Now, who's in the video? Me and security. In this one, play from 531. Where did you go from the hotel? She says, to her house. She took an Uber. And I believe there was a 7-foot driver. So I guess he must have stepped out because the hotel security mentioned it. U.S. Attorney says, now let's turn to text messages. Can you read page 4? Cassie says, please call. I'm surrounded. Okay. They ask, who sent that? She said, it's from Sean. He was running around in a towel. I told him to put the robe on. Who sent these green messages? She said, I did. I wrote to Sean, Jules left. As long as you're quiet, you can stay. Peace. They ask, who was Jules? She says, escort. We established who Jules was yesterday as an escort. Okay. U.S. Attorney says, is this Jules? They show a big photo, showing big smile. Cassie says, yes. Okay. B606 and 607 side by side, Cassie in big sunglasses. She said, that's me. A selfie of me with a fat lip. They asked, when did you take it? She said, in the Uber with one of my phones. So I guess this is directly after that hotel altercation. Okay. U.S. Attorney, what did you write here? Cassie said, I said, please stay away from me. What does he say? He says, I'm getting arrested. Was he? She says, I don't think so. What did you write back? Plugging my phone in and going to bed. Who was at your home when you got there? Cassie says, Carrie Morgan. She was upset when she saw me. She called the police. They asked, did you speak with them? She says, yes, but I didn't say who I was talking about and they left. Why? She says, I wasn't ready. Again, these are going to be things that the defense is going to try to bring up, but we'll see how, she's very honest and open about a lot of this stuff. So we'll see how that goes. U.S. Attorney says, did Sean try to come to your apartment? She says, yes, he was banging. That was pretty normal from him. But this a pretty private building. Did you hear from Miss Coram that day? She says, yes, and I went to see D-Rock and his wife to try to feel safe. That's unfortunate. She had to still go to see Diddy's people to try to feel safe rather than go to her own security, her own support system. U.S. Attorney, in this photo, what are you wearing? She says, a gown and sunglasses. I had a black eye. What if any other bruising was visible? She said, I had several bruises on my leg, but I changed clothes. What's this? She says, me and Sean at the after party. U.S. Attorney says, I'm going to show you escorts. Do you know the name of this person? She says, no. In what cities did you use him? She says, New York. Who's this? Islander. He was on Latin Men. Okay, I guess that must be some type of service. He was on Latin Men. We used him in LA and maybe Vegas. Okay. Who's this? 2A616. Cassie says, we called him Tommy. Who is this? She says, I know him as Greg, an escort in Miami. Who's this? Jonathan. We saw him in Miami. Who's this? Red baseball cap, backwards. She says, I don't know. He looks familiar from the freak-offs. Jesus. What did you write here? This is all we do. I'm just getting back on track. I'm sure you can call Kim or something. What did you mean by this is all we do? She says freak-offs. So she says, this is all we do. I'm just getting back on track. So basically, she needs a break. Okay? And she says, I'm sure you can call Kim or something. I'm guessing referring to Kim Porter. Okay? Now, I don't know if she's alluding to the fact like, hey, get Kim to do it. Or, hell, you could just go over her house and do a little quick jump off if you want to. I don't know. U.S. Attorney says, did you try to avoid anything in the freak-offs? Cassie says, I tried to avoid kissing. It seems too intimate. But Sean told me to do it, to kiss the escorts. What did Sean ask you to do on your 29th birthday? A freak-off. Jesus. On your birthday. You don't even get a break on your birthday to go do what you want to do. Okay? She says, he had pulled me out of the Blind Dragon for the freak-off, some security. What about the blackmail material? She says, he wanted me to fear judge. Defendant says, objection. Judge overrules. When would Sean mention the freak-off videos? She says, to hurt me. One time I was dating someone else, and he threatened to release the freak-off videos. I'd have to answer to my mother. It's horrible and disgusting. No one should do that to anyone, okay? So he was holding these videos over her. So if she ever decided that she wanted to stop, okay? If she were ever to try to walk away from this lifestyle that he has brought her into, he has Lord knows how many tapes, and he's threatening to show them to her mother, okay? And leak them out into the public. I think that's something that frequently gets overlooked is the blackmail videos, because everybody seems to say she could have stopped at any time. She could have left. She could have gone. But then what happens if when she decides to leave, all of these nasty videos actually got leaked on the internet? Then what happens? You know what I'm saying? She's trying to protect her image at the same time. So everybody's going to have their own opinions. And please don't shit on me just for voicing these things. I'm a fucking talking head, all right? I'm not here to be the voice of morality on this situation because I don't know what did and didn't happen. All I can do is speak to what Cassie is saying on the stand. Based on what she's saying, I'm picking up what she's putting down. But I also understand that there's going to be opposing views tuning in and conversing about this stuff. I'm not agreeing with those opposing views. I'm pretty steadfast in Fry Diddy's ass. I've been saying it for a year. So please keep that in mind. We'll continue. They say, let me show you a chat. Who's on it? She says, me and Sean, July 22nd, 2013. Read your message. Cassie says, I wrote, please delete the videos off your phone. Too many people have access to your devices. He said, no iCloud. All good. Ambient kicking in. That's a strange answer. She says, delete the videos off your phone. Too many people have access to your shit. He says, no. No iCloud. All good. Ambient kicking in. So he's saying that it's not going to the cloud. It's just on the phone and his drugs is kicking in. Okay. U.S. attorney says, sidebar, judge approves. Yes. Okay. They come back. 11:10 a.m. Judge is taking a break to change some things in the courtroom. During the break, Holmes sits at defense table, his lawyer Xavier Donaldson leaning down to speak with him. U.S. Attorney Johnson, there's still some issues with the privacy screens, so we'll pull that off and do something else now. Judge says, okay, welcome back, Ms. Ventura. Bring in the jury. U.S. Attorney Johnson, I offer more exhibits. What did you say here? Cassie says, I'd been told there was a sexually explicit video out there about me. I reached out to Sean. So something allegedly leaked. Then what? We were driving back to New York from Atlantic City to talk to his DJ. Who Kid? Not Who Kid. Y'all remember 50 went on Who Kid, I believe it was, and revealed that he had seen the tapes of Cassie. Y'all remember that? I'm not going to pull it up right now. But that's what 50 said many years ago. Interesting. They say, did that happen? Cassie says, at a restaurant. U.S. Attorney, what was security's role? Cassie says, to intimidate. They were lining the room. Who was there? Uncle Paulie, James Cruz. I don't know who Uncle Paulie is. James Cruz is allegedly supposed to be her manager, but he ain't managing too much of nothing. Okay. U.S. Attorney, how would you recover from a freak off? She says, I take opiates. I wanted to feel numb. We'd get massages, IV fluids. The chef would cook us something, all right? So she confirms the IV fluids. Same IV fluids we seen Diddy camped out in the backyard with his mama taking. Remember that video came out. And remember they claim Miss Combs, or whatever they want to call it. Yeah, I think she's Janice Combs. They say she introduced him to the lifestyle. Allegedly. We'll continue. The chef will cook us something. How often did you take opiates after freak-offs? Often. She said she got urinary tract infections. Yikes. Were the UTIs painful? She says very. Antibacterials didn't work anymore. Jesus. They don't work no more. Fuck. So they say, how did it feel during freak offs? She says, burning. I would not advise it. Let's read this out loud. Cassie says, I have all these sores on my tongue. Oh my God. I have another UTI. U.S. Attorney asks, what sores? She says, friction in my mouth. From what? Oral sex. You said, another UTI, then sad face emoji. I believe this is going back to the text. So she's informing Diddy that she has another UTI. These were very frequent. She says, I was open with him about them. I guess Diddy responds, so you feel sick? Cassie says, why are you sorry? She admits she took the blame for things. Okay. Now, another thing I want to point out, because some people have been saying this, and I guess I haven't voiced it enough. In this situation, she is basically doing things to appease him, keep him happy for the most part. Not to mention the blackmail, right? Not to mention she didn't want to get beat up on as least as possible. So keep those things all in perspective as well. We'll continue. Okay. U.S. Attorney says, which escort will go to sex clubs with you and Sean? She says, Jules. The escort from the Intercontinental in L.A.? She says, yes. Did you want to have sex with Jules ever? She says, no. So she never was actually interested in a sexual relationship with this Jules person. It seems she was a little bit more into the other guy, Daniel Phillips, not Jules so much. But she says, but I knew him. Why did you do it? Sean. Who was present when Sean put his hands on you at freakouts? She says sometimes the escort was there too. In the same room? Yes, Jules. Not to be confused with yes, Jules, okay? In the suite, she says yes. Were they aware? Defense says objection. Overruled. Yes. Ventura. That's Cassie. The escorts would ask me if I was okay afterward. In what cities did he put his hands on you? She says New York, LA, Miami. How frequently? Cassie says too frequently. Okay. They then ask, what's the Abbey? Cassie says a gay club in LA. I went there with my friend. Where were you going? She says to a music festival in Canada. Okay, something clearly was missed here. Because damn. Where were you going? To a music festival in Canada run by Drake. Sean came to my home and tried to attack me. I was thrown into the bed frame. Jesus. So there must have been some tension there about her being at an area. Oh, that's OVO Festival, music festival in Canada run by Drake. She went to OVO Fest. Sean came to my home and tried to attack me. I guess this is after she got back. I was thrown into the bed frame. Maybe he felt like she was there to see him. What's this? She says, a photo of my eye afterward. Who took you to the doctor? D-Rock. So D-Rock definitely know what the fuck going on, and he was complicit in this as well, and D-Rock was security for Diddy. Okay? U.S. Attorney says, did you send this photo to Sean? She says, yes, and I wrote. So you can remember I wanted him to be sorry about it at least. In this photo, where were you? She says, in the green room in Toronto. I put my hair over my eye, then we went to the Hamptons, okay? So she's covering her eye from bruises with her hair. Then they went to the Hamptons, and of course, Diddy is notorious for being in the Hamptons since the 90s. We're taking trips there at least, and I believe he bought a house there in the early 2000s. Keep going. Sean wanted to have a freak off in the Hamptons. We got a hotel and an escort. Which one? Somebody named Dave. She says, I took GHB. I went into a G hole and blacked out. I don't know what the hell that is. She says, I woke up nude in the shower. Dave and Sean were freaking out. I bugged out. It wasn't pretty. So she took GHB. She went into a G hole, which I don't know what that is, but clearly she blacked out and knew nothing of what was going on. She says she woke up nude in the shower, so she was still, maybe she was just in the shower. Maybe, I don't know if the water was running or not. But Dave and Sean was getting to it at this point on their own. She says it wasn't pretty. Okay. Then what? She says, I spoke to a friend of Sean's and then we had a freak off. Okay. They ask, what's this? I'm guessing it's a photo. She says, my eyebrow healed up a little bit. A week later, I have a permanent scar on my eyebrow. Damn. What's this? She says, me at the Cannes Festival. Okay. They say, what happened there? She says, Sean accused me of taking drugs from his boat. He threw me off, but my passport was still on the boat. Okay. So he's getting possessive about the drogas here. Okay. They say, and you were on the red carpet that same night? She says, yes. Did you attend the movie? Yes. How did you get back to New York? How did you get back to New York? She says, on a commercial flight. I traded my seat to get away, but he traded to get next to me. Wow. So whoa. So she tried to, get on a commercial flight rather than go private? Is that what happened? And then he ended up trading his seat and sat next to her? Okay, so what did he show you? She says, freak off videos. He played them for me on one of his laptops. He said he'd release them. Once again, this is her attempting to try to, I don't even know if she was necessarily trying to get away permanently. She was just trying to get some space, seems like. And he like, you do anything out of what I'm telling you, I'm going to drop this. She says, how did you feel? She says, trapped. When you landed in New York, what did you do? We went to a dinner. Then he wanted to have a freak off. So we had a freak off. They asked, why did you do it? She says, to make him not threaten me. Okay. So here we are. They say, let's read these from June 13th, 2013. All right. So now we get a little bit more dates as to what's going on, because a lot of this stuff is kind of generally speaking, they're talking about photos and stuff like that, but not necessarily giving dates. So here we get to 2013, and Sean had been violent with you before this. She says, yes. Have you told him before you didn't want to do freak off? She says, yes. Okay. They asked, you said you needed GHB. She says, yes. And that 2 escorts not available. Okay. She says, I wrote only Paul available or Jake the white guy, but he can't do until 11. The other guy can do earlier. It's just one more person knowing our secret. Okay. They ask, what did you mean? Cassie says, the freak offs. Okay. What is SLS? A hotel in Hollywood. When would you take Valium before a freak off? She says, when I had anxiety. Sean's driver was bringing me the Valium. It was Raheem, I think. Judge says, jurors, you can take lunch now. So they take a quick lunch. Judge says, Miss Slavic, are there still disagreements on the exhibits? They say, yes, the defense wants the exhibit to be longer and about masturbation. Defense says they wanted to cut it off at looking at my iPad. We just heard this morning about videos on his devices, so this is relevant, okay? So they're talking about videos on his laptop or whatever the case may be. So they're trying to show some of this video, and it seems that the U.S. attorneys are kind of objecting a little bit or trying to minimize how much is going to be played, right? So Slavic says, we can agree to more, something less than the 10 pages. And now Hecker Fink for the witness known as Mia. He says there is a jury instruction about victims. So now we get Hecker Fink for the witness known as Mia. Remember, Mia is Diddy's ex-personal assistant, okay? He says there is a jury instruction about victims. Fink says, Mia would have taken this to her grave. I don't know how to support her if we can't discuss her pain, what she went through. We will not put words in her mouth. Her nerves are through the roof. Judge says, we are trying to prevent witnesses being counseled on how to testify, what to say or not say. Anything else? Okay. Would that be acceptable? Okay. Fink says, I'm afraid she'll have a moment, lose it, then ask me, did I forget something? I worry. Okay. Now, counsel to Jane Doe says, I am worried that Jane Doe will not know what she can ask me. Judge says, as long as you don't coach testimony. Okay. Wigder, counsel to Cassie, says, I have nothing to add. I'm sure they don't. She's very comfortable, or as comfortable as can be, on the stand. Ms. Shapiro, we've spoken with each attorney. We need more time to print the binders. Judge says we'll break. All right. They take one more break. They come back. All right. Come back a little later than planned, belatedly. All rise. Judge says, as to Exhibit 619, the objection to the defendant's proposal is overruled. Let's have Miss Ventura back, then we'll bring in our jury. Jury enters. U.S. Attorney Johnson says, I have a binder for the court. The gallery will not be able to see these exhibits. Miss Ventura, I will show you some exhibits. 2A404. Who is it? She says she worked for Sean. We will call her Mia. When you gave your devices to the government, were they working? She says, no, they were broken. Interesting. U.S. Attorney says, put up 602A for Miss Ventura and the jury only. What's on your skin? She says, oil. Okay, now remember, she mentioned yesterday how much he liked her to oil up every 5 minutes or something like that. Just way too much. But we'll continue. When did Sean first hurt you physically? She says it started in the first year they were together. What staffer were present when Sean was physical with you? Defense says objection. Physical is vague. Punching, hitting. I don't know. You wanted him to be more specific on that? Johnson says, when did Sean first use violence on you? Cassie says, in New York City, we were in a car with his security and he knocked me around. What did he do? She says he hit me in the side of the head. I fell to the floor of his Escalade. In January 2009, did you attend an event in LA with Sean? She says yes. What happened as you left? Cassie said I'd been speaking to a producer about music. Sean called me a slut. I hit him in the face. I had been drinking. Okay? So they're definitely going to try to use that as like, oh, she's being an aggressor here. Did you see any injuries? No. Okay, so she's talking to a producer about music, and because she's communicating with this person, Sean Diddy is calling her a slut, okay? Exerting control. She says, I was on the floor of the car and he stomped on my face. How long did this last? Cassie says 10 minutes. Then I tried to get away, but Sean's security brought me back. Who? Roger Bonds. Now, if y'all can remember, last year, Roger Bonds talked about this exact situation. And he said he was going to come out with more information, and then he didn't. Okay? But now his name is coming up. So here, they ask, what did they tell me? I'm guessing they say, what did they tell you? She says to go to a hotel. They snuck me into the hotel, covered up so no one could see my face. How long were you at the London hotel? She says a week, a little more. An assistant brought me ice cream. What was the assistant's name? Genevieve. Did you feel you could leave the London hotel? She says no. I understood his capability, his access to guns, the threats he made. When were you taken to the hotel after... Were you taken to the hotel after the assault? No. I don't know. Something about this ain't translating correctly for me. They say here, did you know that this assault incident was reported? She says, I knew there was a blind item on the internet without our names. That's interesting. Because, a lot of these blind items, some people believe them, some people don't, depending on the source. I mean, a lot of this shit be bullshit, or at least has to be taken as bullshit until it's proven. But I guess there was some validity to this one. Okay? Did you know that this assault incident was reported? She says, I know there was a blind item on the internet without our names. Okay, who raised the blind item to you? She says, my mother. Her mama found it. Defense, objection. Not for the truth. Overruled, says the judge. Cassie says, this was before FaceTime was very popular, so I could hide myself. She asked if it was me. What did you say? She said, no. I did not want my mother to know something of that magnitude and be in danger. Okay, so I'm guessing this incident report was about her being abused by Diddy. Her mom asked her about it. At the time, she was afraid to let it be known. And she didn't want to endanger her mother with this information, right? And remember, Dawn kind of talked about the same thing. She had an incident with Diddy. She didn't want to go in this, I think it was a studio or something like that. And he left her stranded in a car outside, locked in. Her dad showed up, tried to fight him, and he threatened her father. So then at that point, she was afraid to even, clue him in on other things. So these people's parents and families were also in danger. We'll continue. When you went to a party with your girlfriends, what happened? She said, I saw executives from BET. Then I heard that Sean was there. What did you do? She says, I left. I ran out as fast as I could. She said, why? She says, I thought he was angry. Did he come to the hotel where you were staying? She says, yes. He beat me up and called me names. My face was bruised. This photo, who is it? Oh, shit. She says, Scott Mescudi, known as Kid Cudi. We dated in 2011. All right, y'all. Get into this Kid Cudi shit. Wow. Did Sean find out? Yes, in my phone. Sean went through my phone during a freak off. He found an email. About what? She says, taking my toiletry bag to Scott's the next day. Sean put a wine opener in his hand and threatened me. I called Scott on a burner phone. It's interesting how these wine openers turn into weapons in the house of Diddy. Didn't they say Kim Porter stabbed him with a wine opener on his hand that he has like a scar? Interesting. She says, I called Scott on a burner phone. Where did you go? Cassie says, to Scott's house. Then I talked with Capricorn Clark, one of Sean's assistants. Interesting. Then what? I went to the house Sean was staying at. He told me he would release videos and hurt Scott and I. What videos? Freak off videos, okay? So he found out that she's dealing with Kid Cudi romantically. And he says, hey, keep fucking around. I'm going to start leaking this shit out. Again, he keeps threatening her. Every time that she starts acting out of his program, he threatens to release the tapes. Okay? Freak off videos. Sean kicked me in the back. I got a bruise. They asked, where'd you go? Cassie says, to my hotel with the burner phone. The room was torn up. Someone peed all over the floor, pooped in the toilet, and didn't flush it. It was gross. This was just before Christmas. I'm guessing it was probably Diddy, or maybe he sent somebody over there to do the deed. Okay, Cassie says, I sent an email to my mom in Capricorn from my flight to Boston and Connecticut. They asked, what did you write? She says that Sean said he would release the tapes of me on Christmas, and he'd had Scott and I hurt. He said he would be out of the country by then. Okay, so at this point, she starts cluing in her mom and Miss Capricorn, who Diddy also worked with. And Diddy threatened her and Kid Cudi, right? So here they ask, what are these photographs? Cassie says, my mother took them in Connecticut of the bruises on my back. Were you entirely honest with your mother about the bruise? She says, no, I said this was the first time. Okay, so her mom finds out about this situation. She's been kicked in the back. Her mom takes a photo of the bruise on her back. She lies to her mom and said this is only the first time that it ever happened, knowing that it had already been going for years. Okay? Did you tell your mom about the freak offs? No. Cassie asks, is it possible to take a break? Judge says yes, break, okay? So at this point, Cassie is reliving all this stuff and she asks for a break. Okay? They come back. 3:09 p.m., they're back. Judge says, Miss Johnson, any estimate? Okay? Johnson says an hour more. The goal is to finish the direct and allow the start of cross-examination today. Judge says, bring the witness and then the jury back in. Jury entering. U.S. Attorney Johnson, did anyone come to see you in Connecticut? Okay. Cassie says, Scott did for a few days. I broke it off with him. It was too dangerous. Defense objection. Judge overruled. Cassie says, Sean said he would hurt both of us. All right. And remember, Scott is Kid Cudi. Where did you go after Connecticut? She says, I went to see Sean. He was in Arizona, his son college. I told my mother I was going to LA for work. Did Sean talk about Scott's car? Oh, shit. Cassie says Sean said he wanted Scott's friends to see Scott's car blown up. Okay, so this is the nature of the explosion. What happened next? We met Sean, Scott, and me. Oh, so y'all all together. Diddy, Kid Cudi, Cassie. Scott said, what about my vehicle? And Sean said, what vehicle? And that was the end of the meeting. Okay. They pull up a photo, says, what is this? She says, me and Sean in Kingston, Jamaica for Sound Clash. Okay. They asked, were you bruised? She says, yes. In this photo, what is it? She says, me in Sean's bathroom, September 18th, 2015. Asking, what were you doing there? She says, recuperating from being beaten up by Sean in Vegas. Cassie states, we were having an after party in our suite. I talked to a producer and Sean tapped me on the shoulder, called me into our room and beat me. So every time she talks to an outside producer, he gets very angry. Anytime she talks to anybody outside of the circle, the squad in any way, he gets possessive, starts putting hands on her and feet because he kicked her in the back. Okay. Kicked me as I tried to hide behind the toilet. What stopped it? D-Rock and James Cruz came in. And y'all some sorry ass niggas for intervening on some shit but not doing nothing else. Y'all could have easily, well, I ain't gonna say easily, but y'all could have did what y'all needed to do to that man if y'all really wanted to. But y'all was on payroll. Ventura said it made D-Rock sad. A sad sack of shit. U.S. Attorney says, what are these communications? From D-Rock to me. He says, where you at? It's time to ice your face. Time to ice your face? What type of appointment is that? They ask why. She says, I had just been beaten up by Sean. Were these all the times he beat you? She says, no, there were more. With who else did you see Sean be violent? She says, I saw him drag an assistant out of bed. I saw him punch Eli in his head. One time in Turks and Caicos, he dragged a person. So he was violent with assistants. He was violent with other people that worked for him. All types of people. He thugging out. Corporate thugging out because they really not fighting him because they don't want to get on his bad side. They just letting them kind of whoop their ass for real, for real. Cassie says, I believe we had a freak off in Turks and Caicos. What floor did you live on in 875 Comstock? She says 17th floor. Did a friend stay with you? She says yes. Sean came and held her and threw her on the patio furniture out on the balcony. Okay, so this is the incident that we heard about last year. Diddy was actually sued for this as well. The friend who was, hung over the balcony. Not to be confused with Wale. We see Wale has been angry this week. He was asked about that in a new interview. And he's like, bruh, that's ridiculous. Never had any run in. It was not, Aunt Glizzy. He shared a false story. This is actually a woman. Okay? So here they say I saw Sean bring her back in from over the balcony. Whoa. Yes, Sean came and held her and threw her on the patio furniture out on the balcony. She says, I saw Sean bring her back in the room, back in from over the balcony, then throw her on the patio furniture. They ask about Carrie Morgan. She says, I saw Sean hit her in the head. So he's just doing all types of violent outbursts on everybody. Okay? Did you get drugs on your own? She says, occasional drug dealers, opiates, Xanax, Valium. That's a quick segue. Cassie says, Sean would put the pills in a vitamin C bottle on the sink in the New York apartment. He'd say, you can take them. He had doctors who would write the scripts in the name of an assistant or in my name. So, he got actual doctors giving him illegal prescriptions. Okay? Your brother's birthday party in Connecticut in 2013, what happened? She says, my mother told me someone was taking pictures of me. I went and punched her in the head. I guess the person taking pictures. You testified your relationship with Sean ended in 2018. How was your health? She says, I was sleepwalking. I had PTSD. Defense says, objection. Overruled. What's this? A photo of my front door in 2018. Publish it to the jury. Why is a knife there? Cassie says Sean was coming around a lot, so I had it. Okay, so he was busting up in her spot. Okay. August 2018, what happened? We were having a closure conversation at a restaurant in Malibu. He was trying to convince me to go to Burning Man. They asked, were you seeing anyone? She says, my now husband. What happened next? Sean came to my house and, SA'd her on the living room floor. His eyes were black. It was like taking something from you. They asked, you cried. What did Sean do? Cassie says, he continued and finished inside of me. Then he got up and left. Disgusting. U.S. attorney says, did you ever have sex with him again? She says, yes, voluntarily. Wow. Well, I guess after doing this for so many years, she says, we had a good night. I went back to his house. Can you explain why you did that after he SA'd you? She says, we have been together 10 years. Probably wasn't the first time, to be real. Who did you stay in touch with? Most people, though I pulled away. What did you message Sean about after that? Just checking in. What did he send you? That he had iPads full of images. Get him his money. Oh, wow. So now he's demanding money. They ask money back for what? Cassie says, for having paid my now husband to be my trainer. What did you write back? She says, do you want me to tell the truth? It's much deeper than iPads. There was abuse more than freak-offs. Whoa. Please tell. What? Do tell. What the fuck? Cassie says, there was a time I couldn't take the pain. Tried to walk out in traffic. My husband wouldn't let me. I had trauma therapy. So she tried to unalive herself. Did you write? She says, a book with chapters. My mom helped. What did you want with the book? That Sean read it. Okay. What pain did Sean put you through? She says, shame. To carry the things that were shameful for him. I took on a lot of responsibility for that I never should have. He brought the concept to me when I was 22. It was expected of me. I felt terrible. And of course, the concept is this freak off lifestyle. Okay? Because he waited until she was of age to introduce her into the lifestyle. Before then, it was just all good, having good times and hanging out and making music. After 21, it was off to the freak offs. Okay. How did you get chapters to Sean? She says, through my attorney, and I reached out to KK, aka Miss Coram. I asked her if he read it. She said it was not taken seriously. Okay. How much did you ask for the book? $30 million. Did you sue? She says November 2023. Okay. So she asked for 30. They say, what happened with the lawsuit? She says it settled for 20 million in 24 hours. They ask, why are you testifying in this trial? She says, I can't carry this anymore. What's wrong is wrong. I tried people like they were disposable, escorts, anybody. How many freak offs did you have with Sean? Impossible to know, hundreds. After you broke up with Sean, did you ever do a freak off? She says no. U.S. attorney says no further questions. Okay, so $20 million overnight. And we saw that, but damn. And let's be real, man. If he ain't know what the fuck was going on, why'd he pay that shit in 24 hours? He knew that shit was real. Sidebar before cross. Yes. With jury out, the judge says, why don't we put off the cross until tomorrow? U.S. Johnson says, we'd like to start now to be sure to finish. Judge says, Mr. Savio, she will be finished by the end of the week, so no cross today. Judge says, we'll just make up the time in other ways, get the jury. The witness can be excused. Yes. Cassie is allowed out, I'm guessing, at this point. Jury entering. Judge says, sorry to bring you out, only to send you home. Excuse me. Don't read anything about this case. Have a great evening. All rise. Interesting that they got to talk about this shit so casually. I mean, I guess it's their profession, but damn. Jury exits. Judge says, Miss Kami, here's what the defense sent us about Rule 412. Kami says, we believe we had agreed that other sexual acts by the witness were not admissible, but we understand they intend to cross-examine her about other relationships with texts about sex, about Miss Ventura effing someone else. Why is that necessary? I don't want to read these into the record, so I'll hand copies up. Judge says defense. Agnifilo says these are messages about jealousy in the vocabulary of, are you effing that person? That's fair game. This is the real world way people express hurt. Okay, so some of these text messages of Cassie's jealousy, which she admitted to her jealousy in day one anyway. The U.S. attorney doesn't really want those to be revealed. Diddy's defense says it needs to be let out. All right. Kami says the rule requires that this be sealed. Judge says let's proceed without specifics. Agnifilo said, saying are you effing that person is just a vulgar way of asking are you cheating. Both sides opened on infidelity. This is not 412. Judge says we could do it in the robing room. Okay. U.S. attorney says the defendant would have to be present. Judge says so in the courtroom, sealed. U.S. attorney, counsel for victim 1 would like to be heard. Judge says I see his hand. Mr. Wigder. Mr. Wigder says we are entitled to notice. Of course, Wigder, once again, is Cassie's lawyer. Okay. At this point, judge says so tomorrow morning, adjourned. All right. So they will continue. And again, if YouTube is still wigging out, you may not be seeing this till Thursday morning. This will start your day. Then we'll catch up later on the other happenings. Hopefully we can get all this mess cleared up. Okay. YouTube really fucked up my day today. And I'll be transparent since I typically am. YouTube does this thing called checks, right? So when you upload a video, you're trying to monetize it. They're giving you all the ad stuff. You got to put your ads in if they allow it. Went through the whole process, but then they have this thing called checking. And what they're doing with checking is allegedly browsing through the video to make sure that nothing is violating ad suitability. Ad suitability, if you violate it, they're not going to really pay you. right? So every video that I've uploaded today, which would be Wednesday at the time of recording, the shits have been sitting around checking for hours. I don't know what the fuck is going on, but that's what's going on, right? I got 3 videos sitting here still checking. One video already came out, that bitch still checking, which means they probably not gonna pay me for that shit. And as I tell y'all, I ain't taking no L's. This is my job. So if anything comes out later than you would think, it's YouTube, all right? Let me know what y'all think of all this down below with the Cassie situation. They're going to resume. Cross-examination is going to begin. Hopefully I'll be able to get that in real time as close as possible. Be sure to like and share this video. If this is your first time seeing me on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, become an insider. I will catch y'all on the next one. Much love and respect, y'all. Peace.
King of my city and cul-de-sac. Coming out swinging like soldier rag. Leading my people like quarterback. Boy, I study this shit, I'm an almanac. Had to get up and grind. Knowledge is booming, I'm here to apply. Came with the chip and the dip, it just single the mind. We finna do more than survive. I need my check. Spinning the block for the Gouda. We hitting the jeweler to flood out the net. We don't do beef for computers, I'm straight out the sewer. We come when you rest. Niggas be looking perplexed, so keeping my foot on their neck. No map, I trust my gut for the quest. With drama, I'm fully abreast. I was ready for years and they doubted me. All of a sudden they tell me they proud of me. I've been dropping these haters like calories. First I'm out, I came back with some boundaries. Stand for my honor, but too raw, no corner. Packing the stick with a drummer. Wanna catch my bad, won't fumble. I done came too far to be humble.